Hello and welcome. Today I'm going through a demo of Rockton Pricing Management. We call it RPM for short. This demo will give you an idea of how RPM can work with multiple ERPs and how it calculates prices. First, let me tell you a little bit about Rockton software. Our goal for our products is to make your work simpler and easier so you can spend your time on more important tasks. Rockton software has been around since 1999. We started as an ISV selling add-on products for Dynamics GP, but have since also become an Acumatica reseller and selling add-on products there. We're a virtual company with employees in 7 different states with headquarters in Erie, Colorado. One of the products we sell is OmniPrice, which is a pricing add-on for Dynamics GP. This is where we got the idea for RPM. It's a bigger and better version of OmniPrice and works with more than one ERP system, including Acumatica. RPM is a SQL-based standalone product, which is how it works with more than one ERP. So what does RPM offer? Well, RPM lets you set up pricing for the most basic scenarios to something more complex, and there are a lot of things you can do with RPM. Customer-specific pricing, date-driven pricing, so you can set up pricing ahead of time and have it go into effect at a particular time, stacked price calculations where you might have multiple discounts, fees, or other calculations. There's volume and tiered pricing, rebate management, and so much more. As long as you have a way to get a starting price, we can help. Now, if you have salespeople who like to make up their prices as they go, that gets a little more difficult. Setting up your pricing in RPM is easy and it integrates well with Acumatica. As you enter sales orders or invoices, RPM goes out and looks for a price in RPM using a connector. This is what links the RPM engine and Acumatica together. It then pushes the price back into Acumatica along with any adjustments like discounts, promos, fees, rebates, or any other calculation you need. So let's take a look at how RPM works with Acumatica. So let's enter a sales invoice. And in this example, it's for a customer who has special pricing. As you can see, the end user wouldn't really notice a difference when entering a transaction. And after the line is entered, we can view the line information and scroll to the bottom of the page to see what price adjustments were made to this transaction. So for this line, we have these price adjustments. They get a 10% discount, plus they have an additional 8% discount for a promo that we're running. And then due to some shipping requirements, there's also a temporary fee being added to the line for this particular item. And lastly, they also get a rebate on an item they're purchasing. And notice that the first 3 adjustments changed the base price, where the rebate calculation did not. So you may not have this many price adjustments on a line, or you could have even more, but you can see how flexible it is when it comes to pricing. If you want to see how that price came to be, you can use the View Diagnostic feature to see how the price was calculated. It takes you step by step on how it found the price used. So this is really helpful in troubleshooting. Now let's take a look at RPM and how it was set up to reach the price it used on our Acumatica invoice. In RPM, the menu is broken down into a few sections. The first being the ERP data. This is data from Acumatica, and this information is brought in through the implementation process and then stays in sync between Acumatica and RPM. This data would still be managed within Acumatica and synced to RPM. The pricing section is where you'll set up your pricing requirements. Using the example from the transaction we just entered, let's take a look at how that was set up. So we have our price schedule, and the price schedule ties directly to your customer price class in Acumatica and is where the pricing information comes from when RPM is called to get a price. So notice I have this Use in Dynamic Pricing marked. This means I want RPM to find the best price schedule for the transaction line. If this wasn't marked, it would be called static pricing, where the price schedule defaults based on the price class assigned to the transaction, and Acumatica would drive that. You decide which option you want to use. On the price schedule, we have pricing filters. In this case, we're using one for our loyal customers. And a pricing filter can filter based on attributes of a customer, an item, also on date, location. There's a lot of flexibility when it comes to filtering. There's also a rank, so we can rank the price schedule to have one more important than the others. The price source option is important. This is where the price originates. It can be based on another price schedule, the last item cost, the list price, a price book, which we'll talk about in a bit, but this gives you even more flexibility in determining your price. You can also use rounding rules on your prices. So for example, you might want your price to always end in 99 cents, or when you have a sale, the price always ends as an even dollar amount, or you might want the price to round up to the nearest 25 cents. And in this section here, we have the price calculations. These are where you can determine discounts, fees, commissions, and whatnot. And we saw in the transaction in Acumatica that each of these calculations were used to get the final price, except for the rebate, because while we want to calculate the rebate, we don't want it to change the unit price. So let's take a closer look at the discount price calculation. On a price calculation, we can select the price mode option as to whether it is a fixed adjustment or a percent adjustment or whichever. And then depending on, you enter whether it's an amount or a percent. The checkboxes allow you to modify the unit price. So for our example, this discount calculation is going to affect the price because we want to reduce the price by that discount amount. This box was left unmarked for the rebate since we only wanted to calculate what the rebate would be without affecting the price. This works great for margins and commissions as well. The box from the base starting price means, do you want to calculate this from the base price or the last calculated price? So for example, you could have two discounts where you calculate the first one and then the next discount is based on that price or the original price that it started at. This use value from attribute is another way to determine pricing. You can base the pricing from an attribute. For example, platinum, gold, and silver level customers could be an attribute, and you base it off of that rather than having different price schedules. As I mentioned, we can have a pricing filter on a price schedule, but we can also assign them to a price calculation. So we could have one price schedule and then assign a pricing filter to each price calculation and calculate the discounts that way. So you could have multiple discounts on one price schedule, but then use filters on the calculations to determine what customers or maybe items the discount will apply to. It's just another way RPM is so flexible. There's usually more than one way to set up your pricing in RPM, and it really is based on what works best for you. In this tracking section of the price calculation, you can choose to track the adjustments in the GL so you can code your discounts, rebates, and whatnot to their own GL account when you enter a transaction. So mark to track and then choose your GL accounts. This makes tracking discounts, rebates, and commissions, royalties, everything super easy. When we were looking at the price source options on the price schedule, one of the options was price book. This is another way for you to price your items. You can set up a price book with price sheets. Think of a price sheet as a price list. It's date-driven and allows you to set a price here and have RPM use that price. Notice in this example I have a price book for annual pricing and have set up pricing for the current year and the next year. This way you can set up pricing in advance and have it go into effect at the appropriate time. This is also nice if you have sales for certain time periods. The price sheet is also where you can set up quantity breaks if you price your items based on quantity sold. You can do it based on volume, where the price is based on that quantity break, or tiered, where it's the average price of each quantity break affected. I also wanted to mention that you'll notice the import-export buttons on most pages. You can import and export records to make things a little simpler. This is helpful when you do have changes to pricing or if you want to create similar records with just a few changes. The last section is the Tools section. Under the Tools section, we have pricing scenarios. You can create pricing scenarios to test your pricing and make sure you get the results you expect. You can save a pricing scenario so you can run it again in the future without having to enter the information again. Here we have one already created. And note that not every field is used in this example. You choose what you want to use to build the scenario, click Execute, and then click the Results tab to see the price returned. This is a beneficial tool when it comes to testing, and notice there's a View Diagnostics here as well. so you can see how the price was calculated. Also under Tools, we can access the Diagnostics log. This is a record of every diagnostic run when searching for a price. Again, super helpful in troubleshooting. So throughout this demo, I've mentioned rebates and how you can use a price calculation to figure those. So another part of RPM is rebate management, where you can go and pull your rebates for a customer or vendor. So let's take a look at how that works. In Acumatica, go to the RPM rebate batch form, which is found under both payables and receivables. In this window, you create your rebate batch based on the GL account. I've already created a batch to capture those rebates. When you enter the GL accounts, a list of available rebates are displayed. So you mark those to include and then create the rebate transaction based on what you selected here. From that point, the transaction created is treated like any other transaction. While this is called rebate management, you could actually use this for other price calculations as well. Margins, commissions, things like that. We just went through one simple example of pricing in RPM, but there is so much that you can do with it. The flexibility makes it easy to do what you need. So if you have any questions or you'd like more information, you can contact our sales team at 877-4-ROCKTON or sales@rocktonssoftware.com. You can also visit our website at rocktonssoftware.com and click on Products and then Rockton Pricing Management.